Hello, my name is Kate Hudson Hall, and thank you for listening to Bulimia Sucks. So this is a platform for people to share relatable and uplifting and inspiring conversations based on an eating disorder. And these are real stories from people who are suffering or have suffered an eating disorder. And episodes will include their personal stories of where they are now and their difficult journeys and their steps taken into their recovery, and also to professionals who work with people with an eating disorder. But today is going to be a little different, so it's very exciting. But first, let me tell you about my audiobook. So it's the Bulimia Sucks audiobook, and it's launching on June the 27th. And if you would be interested and would like a free copy of this, then email me at katehudsonhall@gmail.com, and I can send you the code for you to download it for free on Audible or iTunes or Amazon. And then also on the 27th of June, we're launching Patreon. And for those of you who don't know what Patreon is, so it's a way for our viewers to support us financially and allow us to continue creating content and helping people who are struggling with eating disorders, because we want to help as much as possible. Now, our guest today is Sharrie Williams. Now, Sharrie joined us a few weeks ago, and she shared her story with us, her journey with her eating disorder. Now, Sharrie is the heir to the Maybelline legacy, and she is Tom Lyle Williams's great niece, who was the founder of Maybelline. And she is an award-winning speaker, a celebrity columnist, and the author of the Maybelline Story. So it is very exciting because she is also bringing out her second book in 2022 called Maybelline Out of the Ashes. So it's very exciting. But today she is here to join us. And because we are going to be talking about eating triggers. And I think it's an important subject because we all have probably many of them, and connected to our eating disorder or connected to food in some way or connected to anxiety or to all sorts of negative emotions and thoughts and feelings that we have. So Sharrie is going to come and talk about her eating triggers, and then in order for people to be able to learn more and understand maybe a little bit more about their eating triggers. So I'd like to welcome Sharrie. So thank you so much for coming back and joining us.
Of course, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's fabulous to have you here again. It's very exciting. So now we are going to be talking about eating triggers, aren't we? And so let's first of all talk about what eating triggers are. So in eating triggers, it's anything that sends you into your pattern of binging and purging or over exercising or going and reaching out for the laxatives or, drinking too much alcohol or whatever that negative, horrific path is that you've got into. So it's the very first thing that you do that sends you down into your negative pathway. But it's not something that we normally really pay attention to. But it's something that happens in a flash. And it's something that you would either say to yourself or you would have an image in your head of something, or it would be a feeling that you have. So it's really important that you start to pay attention to what your eating triggers are. So, Sharrie, do you have an example of a eating trigger that you've had maybe recently or you remember having? Because Sharrie, you had a number of different eating disorders throughout your life.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Uh, for me, it's the anorexic. I love the anorexic high. of not eating.
Right.
And then, you know, you be sort of like a periodic drunk. You can only go so far before then you binge,
Yeah.
because the binging helps calm the negative feelings that have
Right.
kind of piled up for the week or two of not eating very much, you know, and being just, when you don't eat very much, you're in your head. You know,
Yeah.
you're thinking, doing. And then after a while, you just get really exhausted from all that. And
Yeah.
then you just have this overwhelming desire to stuff it and kind of, you're overwhelmed. And at least I feel overwhelmed and afraid. I can't absorb anymore without having something to calm me down. So the overeating takes all the thoughts away and sticks it into how full I am. I'm so full, I'm so fat, I'm this and that. At least I'm not thinking about all of my, whatever my issues are. So
So it helps to, for you, in a way, it helps to calm you down,
it helps to calm
and
me
it helps
down.
to detach you from negative thoughts
Yes, it's
or
it's a drug.
feelings that you're having.
It's a tranquilizer.
Right. Okay. And
And
so
then you can just be in that
what,
spacey, that spacey feeling of when you've overeaten, and especially I'm talking about sugar, you know, sweet things, ice cream or whatever. Then you kind of just go off into this la la land of pleasure. And it's like I've just done some mainlining. I've mainlined the ice cream. And now I'm just in this space of total contentment. I'm not even thinking about, I don't even have any issues, you know?
so that's interesting, isn't it? So have you identified any specific eating triggers? Because a trigger, there's a number of different ways how your triggers can be identified, because we have external triggers, which could be something that you see. It could be maybe somebody, you see somebody eating something, or a sandwich, or I don't know, a hot dog or whatever it may be. And that could be a trigger for you. Or it could be something external that you hear. You could hear maybe some rustling of chips or something, and that could be a trigger. Or it could be something maybe that you touch. Maybe you handle food, you know, you hand somebody something of
Mhm,
food. That could be a trigger.
mhm,
Or it could be something that you taste. It could be a
mhm.
certain drink that you have, a coffee that makes you think of cookies or biscuit or whatever it may be. Or it could be a smell. So these are all external triggers. So it could be a smell. So say if you walk past like the bread shop or something, and you've got this
Yeah,
amazing aroma
a good
that
one.
floats out of it, out of the shop. Um, or and then triggers can also be internal. So they could be something that you're thinking in your head to yourself.
Mhm,
Um, Maybe an image of you, say, binging and purging.
mhm.
Or it could be an image of you pulling up your jeans and maybe them feeling a bit tight. And, you know, that sends you down into that spiral.
Right, you might as
Um,
well just eat, right? Because
yeah.
it's already gone.
Right. Yeah. Or it could be something that you say to yourself, oh, I've had such a stressful day. I've got to, you know, I've got to be able to calm myself some way. Um, or it could be something that you're feeling, like a feeling of hopelessness or lonely, sad, isolated,
Mhm.
bored, upset, guilty, you know, and the list goes on. Um, so, you know, there's so many different triggers that we're kind of surrounded by all the time, but we're not aware of. So, Sharrie, for you, so what triggers have you identified?
Well, I was just thinking when you were talking about the days when I would have company, have people come and stay, and you know you've loaded the house with all the food and the desserts, and then they leave. Okay, that's very dangerous, because now all the food is left, and of course I cannot just without willpower, throw it away. So let's say there's a bunch of ice cream and hot fudge and whipped cream and, you know, all that. Well, it just absolutely speaks to me. You know, I'm not going to eat it. I'm not going to eat it. I'm going to save it for when someone else comes. And I'll be sitting there watching TV, and it's like, oh my God, I'm feeling like I want the party to continue. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm feeling lonely.
Oh, so it's a lonely feeling for you.
I'm feeling lonely. They've all left, but they've left the food.
Yes.
So I will go in there, or I did. I remember going in there and just make that ice cream up like in the small bowl, right? Just to have some class. No, go back, eat it. Go back. Before you know it, I have eaten. Let's say that there was actually half a gallon. You know, so there's. I will eat it, and then I'll go, oh my God, I can't even eat anymore. And I absolutely force myself then to throw it down the drain. But it's like, it's a war, it's a fight between that pleasure calling me and me having the will to say, I really don't need it. I'm filled up.
Yeah.
So stop scaring me, you know, that if I don't eat this, I'm never going to get to have this pleasure again. This is it. It's right here.
So, okay, so that would be the very first thing that would happen would be the feeling, or would it be seeing the food, or would it be
Well, thinking about the hot fudge sundae, thinking about it, how
so just
beautiful it was
thinking.
for my friends or my family.
So it would be, maybe it would be an image in your head of the hot fudge,
Sure,
you
the
eating
hot fudge sundae all made up.
So that would be the very first pattern in your
I think of it.
trigger. That would be your trigger that would send you into that pattern.
Yes, and then how it would be so pleasurable to eat it again. You know, it just kind of takes you into la la land while you're eating it. It's like a dope, you know.
Yeah.
Hot fudge sundae, like that's my all-time favorite thing for pleasure.
And
so
now,
anyway, I can't have anything in my house. If I have company, I'll eat it till I can't eat anymore, like that, and then everything has to go. I have to throw it all away.
So that's good. So you throw it away now. So you get rid of it. You throw it away.
Definitely throw it away.
So that's huge. That's huge, isn't it? Compared with how you
cannot live with treats in the house.
Yeah.
It has to be just my food.
Yeah.
And then I'm actually quite content. It's when the culprit is there calling to me, you know, like a bad relationship.
Yeah.
But it feels so good. And then it's like, oh, but I'm so miserable. Oh, I hate this feeling. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, I'm triggered by knowing that it is available to me whenever I want it.
Right.
I have to have more discipline for me to not even care about it. You know, I don't even think about it. It's not like, oh, I want to go down to the market or something. I never would go to that extreme.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they all left.
Yeah. So
I think that's part of it.
Absolutely.
My daughter or whatever, you know, they all left.
There's usually a number of different, you know, minuscule triggers that all happen one after the other that send you down into that path, isn't it? You know, for some people, for a lot of people, it's stepping on the scales. And I recommend that everybody should throw their scales away.
I have one, and I don't do it every day, but I know what you're talking about. Yes. Well, especially if you have gained a little weight and you go, well, what's the point? Might as well just go and, you know, knock myself out.
Well, absolutely. People weigh themselves multiple times a day, and then so many people weigh themselves every morning. And those scales, you know, if they've moved slightly in the wrong direction, then the whole day is ruined.
Yes, I know that feeling all day long.
Why put yourself through that? What is the point of putting yourself through that? You just throw your scales away And you'll know if if you happen to have put any weight on by your clothes. You don't
Oh,
need
yeah.
a piece of metal to ruin your day, because you're probably quite good at it. People are probably quite good at it
I
themselves. They
think
don't
so.
need that piece of metal to help to make them feel even worse.
Yes, and make you just feel like you're such a failure.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many different feelings that come with that. So come on, everybody, throw your scales away. Let's all reunite and toss those scales in the bin.
Yes, your enemy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, the scales, and then there's just having to go food shopping. That can be a trigger. And
Yes.
when people talk about weight and the specific numbers or dress sizes or the amount of food they've eaten, these are all triggers, aren't they? And just
Yes, and when you deny yourself, uh, like anorexic behavior, that denying, it really, you can only go so far before you have to have some human pleasure, you know what I mean? Something that
yeah,
is fun. And for me, having a piece of cake or something is pretty fun.
yeah.
So it's always an issue trying to talk to myself. I really am aware of what's going on inside. And so I'll just say, do you really want that? Are you full? Yeah, I'm full. Well, then do you really need it? You're mostly just mouth hungry, tongue hungry, right?
Yeah.
You just want more, the tongue wants more pleasure. The stomach is so full, but it's just, and it's also a sense of control.
But I
You
think that's a
know,
really good point, because you know that you're not hungry for it. And
never.
for you, you want that pleasure. So it's identifying specifically what that food is going to give you, and for you it's pleasure. So it's finding other ways to gain that pleasure.
Mhm.
So it's replacing that trigger with something else, but something positive.
Well, in the old days, the second best thing would be going shopping.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
that's a
anything
fun
that's
one.
going to give you pleasure.
It is, you get to bring all your presents home and unpack them, put them away,
Yeah. Yeah.
feel really good about yourself.
Yeah. So it's figuring out specifically for the individual, for the person, what is their trigger and what they can do to replace that. So one way for people is to start to, when they are ready to start to identify what their triggers are, what I want them to do is I want them to grab a piece of paper or a notebook or something. And then I want you to, when you're aware that this is the pattern that you've got into, in order to break it down further and identify what the triggers are. So what you want to do is or you want to ask yourself, so what do I see? And then what do I hear? What do I taste, if anything? What am I thinking to myself? What thoughts are coming up?
That one I like.
Yeah. And then what images? Because some people are much more visual than others. Some people are more auditory and some people are more kinesthetic. So it's identifying specifically for the individual. So what is their first trigger? So it's what they think, what thoughts they're having, what pictures they have in their head. Maybe if you touch something, maybe that was a trigger. Or have I just smelt something? Or what feelings am I having? Oh yes, what
Feeling.
feelings am I having?
Mhm.
And if you don't know what feelings you're having, then that's okay. But there's part of you that does know, that unconscious part of you. So if you don't know, you guess, and it's the first answer that comes into your mind is the answer. So then you would write that down, and then that would be your specific trigger. And then once you've got that, identified that trigger, or it could be a number of triggers, Then it's thinking about ways of what you could do differently. It's slightly, just even something really, really small. It could just be, okay, this is what the trigger is. I need to just, first of all, initially take myself out of that room, wherever you are, in the kitchen or wherever, take myself off into another room. Okay, so that's already started to break the pattern.
Right.
And then you can start to think, okay, so I feel really sad right now. Maybe that's what the first trigger is. It's a feeling, or maybe it's a picture of you looking sad, or maybe it's just a thought in your head. Oh, I feel really sad. So taking yourself into the other room and then thinking, okay, well, how can I make myself feel a bit better? Maybe it's phoning a friend, or maybe it's texting somebody, or maybe going online and contacting somebody, if that would work for you. But it's identifying, first of all, what that triggers, and then how you can replace it.
Yes, yes. As you were saying that, I was going, well, I could lay on the bed and maybe go check out Amazon to see what,
Yeah,
if there's anything I need to reorder.
Yeah.
That would take my mind off the food.
Yeah. Or, it could be, so maybe going and having a relaxing bath. So for you, Sharrie, that's something that's very
something I like.
comforting to you. Yeah. Or it could be just lying down listening to some of your favorite music. Or it could be.
You know what I found out? Brushing my teeth.
Yeah, that's another good one.
Yes, if I can have the wherewithal to go in there and force myself, I don't seem to want to do it when I'm fixed up. I mean, I want to do it. The binge or whatever comes, the desire comes when I'm still dressed and everything. If I can force myself to get ready for bed, put my hair up in a bun, brush my teeth, there's no way then. I'm beyond the desire to mess up and have to brush my teeth again.
It's kind of clean the board, hasn't it? Wiped away.
Yes.
You got a clean slate.
But once I'm still all dressed and everything, then it's like I have this romance with the food. But then when I look horrible, it's like, forget it. There's nothing to play with here. Just
Oh, that's funny. So that comes back to your having to look perfect.
Yeah, and the romance. There's part of eating pleasurable food is romantic. Beautiful low lights, candles, music, and food, and it's all pleasure and feel really beautiful and sexy and all that. I mean, the food plays a part in that. Because you're comforting, pleasuring, just having that blow mind in your head of, for me, it used to be hot fudge sundaes, which I still think is about the #1 best dessert in the world. But yes. So, brushing the teeth. If you can actually brush your teeth, you just don't want to, maybe if you floss or use a water pick or something, you don't want to have to do that again. Hassle.
I'm aware, Sharrie, that now you are free from anorexia, bulimia, and the other problems.
I still have the anorexic thing. If I'm under a lot of stress and I'm unhappy, I won't eat. I can't eat. I got pretty thin here through the pandemic because it seemed like my hopelessness, depression was unending with that having to be locked down and sit all the time, and just, we did a lot of Zoom meetings and things like that. And that was great because we always got dressed up for it. But still, it just has been hard coming out of it. And I just can't eat anything when I'm grieving. That's what it is. It's like a state of grief. It's when I'm happy. That's when I want the hot fudge sundae or whatever is left from the party, because it reminds me of what a wonderful time I had, how happy I was, how fun it was. I want to keep it going.
Yeah.
So it's the anorexic thing for me that still is always my #1 favorite go-to drug. And then the under eating, and then occasionally the overeating. But then I have to deal with the guilt and the shame of, oh my God, I'm so fat. It still comes after all these years. if I overeat after not eating, it's like, I'm so fat, and I know I'm not fat. I mean, but part of me in my head is always, you're always going to be a fat girl. My cousin once said, Sharrie, you're a fat girl just dying to get out. In other words, I'm always controlling her with the way that I starve and
Right.
then binge. But there's that part of me, yeah, you have a fat girl in you who's just dying to get out, but you won't let her. I never
Yeah.
forgot that, He says,
Yeah.
you force feed yourself. And that was also an awareness to hear that, because it is true. I'm not hungry. So why am I eating?
Mhm.
Because the fat girl wants to live. She wants out. She's
Right. So
tired of,
that sort of area needs to be kind of looked at further, I'd say.
it's a good one for me, because I was a
Yeah.
little fat kid,
Yeah.
My cousin
That
remembers she was
whole
fat.
area, kind of would be good to delve into, to be able to address.
Well, maybe that's where the pleasure comes in, because I'm allowing myself to accept and love that little part of myself that most of the time I have to like brush away. I can't deal with that part of you,
Mm.
except when the ego comes down, everyone's gone and I'm alone. And then I can go in, oh, let's go in there now and really have fun together and eat that hot fudge sundae.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to manage. I don't think that this comes just without work. You know what I mean? I think you've
Yeah.
got to be very
And
conscious and
about
aware.
how far you have come from the different
Oh,
difficulties that
yes.
you've been through throughout your life is unbelievable.
I have a good relationship now with that part of me that is insatiable. Like she can just
Right.
eat and eat and eat and eat and eat forever, right? Just says she's always right now. If I think about her, she's eating. That part of me inside of me. She's looking at me and she's like, "Oh yeah, this is just she just loves to eat, eat, eat." And then there's that part of me that looks at her with disdain, like, "Oh my gosh, can't you control yourself? I mean, what's wrong with you?" And that's the outer part of me. I wouldn't want anyone to know that there's that other part of me that really is constantly wanting comfort, pleasure, food.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's identifying specifically what your individual trigger is, and then figuring that out and then looking for ways to replace that. And then also having that support network and reaching out if you're in a position where you're ready to, but reaching out for support to help you with
Yes.
the change. I
Oh,
think,
yes.
yeah, I mean, that is just something that is really important in
Well, I have an eating
recovery.
disorder friend who's, quite recovered. And I love it when I can call, and she's a therapist too now, and run my stuff by her and get her insight. Sometimes I think that's all I really want, is for somebody else to understand what I'm saying, what I'm
Right.
feeling, and then give me feedback.
Yeah.
It's like, that's all I needed, was that little bit of human connection, understanding,
Yeah.
mother's love, you
Yeah.
know,
And speaking to somebody else maybe that's been through it.
that's the best, of course.
Mm. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, it's also engaging in, self-care and starting to, be aware of what the triggers are and understand that that's the ultimate time when you'll end up beating yourself up for whatever reason. So it's like, actually, hang on a minute. Do I really need to listen to these thoughts that I'm telling myself? Because we don't actually have to listen to them.
Mm,
We can begin to change that pattern.
right.
But first of all, awareness is the first step. So it's being
Yeah.
aware that you're talking so negatively that you are.
Yes.
yourself.
Negative self-talk for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
it's
I
being
noticed that
aware.
it's always late at night. Another thing about romance is I'm not, I wouldn't binge during the day. It has to be like at 9 o'clock. 9, I know so many of my friends who say the same thing. They're watching TV and about 9, 10 o'clock that it comes over, I've got to go to get a little snack.
Yeah, but there's a reason, because you're not normally hungry at that time unless you've not had dinner,
Mm.
but there'll be a reason for that. So it's actually addressing, well, I know I'm not hungry for this food. Ask yourself, I know I'm not hungry for this food. What feelings am I trying to change?
I just feel
And
like I need to do something, and there's nothing to do, so I guess I'll just go make a bowl of ice cream.
right. So then you could replace that and find something to do.
Something else. Well, no, really, I should just go to bed.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be anything big. It could be just grabbing a magazine or
Yeah.
having.
Maybe that would satisfy your addict, but that wouldn't satisfy mine. I think in those days when I used to do that, I would stay up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning. So, around 11 o'clock at night, a little tortilla with cheese melted on it, things like that. And
Yeah.
so I was really catering to my addict with that lifestyle. But now that I try to turn the lights off at least by midnight, I have more of a routine. And I tell you that brushing of the teeth thing for me, because then I put on my little liners,
Yeah.
like it just clicks something in me that it's over, party's over, get out of the pool, we're done.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, Sharrie, thank you so much for
This
joining.
is fun. This
It's
was
been,
fun to pinpoint a particular thing. It's not easy to be that clear on what those triggers are, but you've definitely given me awareness.
yeah.
Just seeing you now, I will see your face now.
Oh,
I will go,
I
oh,
don't know about
okay, yes,
that.
now I know what's going on here.
I don't think that's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
So, yeah. So awareness is the first step, and it is beginning to break down your pattern and identify specifically what your triggers are, and then work with those and thinking about how you can change that pattern. And making it all conscious. So then you're like, okay, well, that's the pattern. Oh, okay, well, if you go down into a binge and purge, so be it. But it's maybe next time you could become even a little bit more conscious of what the pattern is.
Mhm.
And then when you're ready, it's actually, oh, okay, now let me just run out of the kitchen and let me just take myself off for a quick walk just to get out of the house or whatever it is. I don't know. But breaking that pattern.
I guess if you have a dog, you could take him for a walk.
Well, you could go for a walk without a dog. Maybe.
Really? That's a good idea. Okay.
Yeah, so it could be anything like that. Yeah. Yeah. So is there anything else that you wanted to add, Sharrie?
Well, I mean, when you start doing this, it gives you a lot to think about and feel. You have feelings come up when you are working like this. And yeah, I actually have to go and eat like a regular meal because I am hungry and it is that time, and that's okay. But I'm not going to binge today. You know what I mean? I'm committing to you that I'm not going to binge today. I'm going to take care of myself. And if those feelings come up, I'm going to possibly journal.
Absolutely. So journal, write down what they are, and then think about how you can replace them. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much.
Well, no, thank you, Sharrie, so much for joining us.
Of course, I love it. It's great working with you.
No, it's great to have you on. Thank you so much. So that's all for today's episode of Bulimia Sucks. So thanks for listening. And thank you so much for Sharrie for joining us, sharing your insight into your specific triggers. Because I know it'd be great for people to be able to relate to those.
Yes.
So join us again on the next episode of Bulimia Sucks, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes so you never miss an episode. Plus, If you would like a little extra help, check out my book, Bulimia Sucks, which is on Amazon. And it's got many different techniques to help you to begin to break through your painful bulimic behaviors. And I'd love to hear what you think. So when you're ready, leave me a review. That would be fantastic. And before we go, let us know what you think and show some love. Your favorite podcast by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or Castbox or Embed Player or Apple iTunes. And make sure that you come and join us on Facebook, on the Facebook group Bulimia Sucks, if you haven't already, where it's great to connect with like-minded people and chat about their ups and downs, our ups and downs, everyone's ups and downs, and we can all learn from each other. So thanks for listening, and I will speak to you in the next episode.